all for coming along to this session, this Newsmodo session. I want to make this session not just about Newsmodo, but about the industry and the way it's changed. I've been asked to speak about my observations of the industry and how that led to the development of Newsmodo over the last 3 years, to be honest. So just by way of introduction, my name is Rakhal Ebeli. I'm the founder of Newsmodo. I'm a former journalist myself, and I developed Newsmodo over the last 3 years, as I said. So it's been an exciting process up to this point, and we have a long way to go. We launched Newsmodo on Friday in London to an audience at News Rewired, which was an event being put on at the Microsoft headquarters by journalism.co.uk. And that was a very exciting milestone for us, but it's part of a progression towards something bigger and better that we all hope. So that's my background. I worked as a television journalist, by the way. I worked for a network called Network 10 in Australia as a reporter, as a weather guy, as you know, I'm sure you've all worked in newsrooms. If you have, you end up doing multiple jobs and producing and helping put together packages, really whatever was needed on any given day. Just by way of me understanding who we're engaging with, can I just ask for a show of hands as to who's a journalist in the room here? Okay. And of them, who's a freelance journalist? So we've got a few freelancers, and the rest of you work for publications, blogs, that sort of thing? Yeah. Okay. And the rest are who wants to be a journalist? Who's here to learn about journalism because they have an interest in becoming a journalist? Yeah, a few. Very good. Cool. So Newsmodo was built around some observations that I made as a reporter working in a newsroom. I started working for Network 10 way back in 2002, and about 7 years in, and I'm sure this isn't news to you, but the global financial crisis made life very difficult for a lot of media organizations, and sadly the one that I worked for sadly the one that I worked for was also affected. So it changed the way that news was gathered, changed the way that we operated as a newsroom, and it really made a difference to the type of content that we were acquiring as a newsroom. And it all happened very quickly. In 2010, 2011, there were a number of cutbacks. We had over 100 retrenchments, as you can see, across our network within the space of about 12 months. So all of a sudden, the expectations of the audience were on the increase, and at the same time the level of ability to cover stories was being challenged. We had a lot of new methods to try and acquire content, like I was going out literally and brokering for content from people who had shot stuff on smartphones. We would literally go out to a scene, and where in the original days, the old days of my career anyway, my first port of call would be to land an interview, get an exclusive interview. That role was changing to finding exclusive content. And when we found it, this user-generated content, we would have to find a way to buy it. So the whole dynamic of the way news was being gathered and the way that the news was being broadcast was changing. There was a lot more live content, there was a lot more filler content, because we just didn't have the manpower. At the same time, there were an expanding market of freelancers. All those hundreds of people that worked as full-time journalists were now suddenly cast into a new environment where they were looking for work opportunities. They were looking for potentially training to diversify their skill sets and work across multiple mediums. So the landscape was changing really quickly. And I obviously learned very fast that we weren't alone in Australia. This was happening as a global trend. This was happening fast. In the US, more than 60% of staff reported reductions within their own newsroom last year. Up to 20% of journalists believed that their publications would be taken off the market globally last year. Coverage using news crews was down 30%. So that went to what I was experiencing. The type of news that we were gathering was changing, and the type of, I guess, stories that we were acquiring was coming from external sources rather than totally within our own resources. So you can see here from some of the stats that this is very much a global trend, and here in Europe it's certainly happening as well, with the 43% stat that you can see there. But what has emerged from that is some interesting trends. So while all of that is, I suppose, doom and gloom in terms of the structure of newsrooms and the way that we had established our mindsets around the way newsrooms were working or should work or will work in the future, disruptive technology and the way that people process the content that they're looking for, and I suppose even the way that some newsrooms were embracing this change due to potentially or expectedly being forced to, has led to some interesting trends. And these were highlighted recently by the gentleman there, whose name I won't try and pronounce, at the World Editors Forum. He is the president of the World Editors Forum. And what interested me was the #1 trend there, that newsrooms are increasingly outsourcing. So this went to everything that I suppose those observations that I'd made led to. And this really was the genesis for Newsmodo. So back in 2011, I launched a website and a very basic application. It was actually called News Me, and it was fairly basic, but it did the job. It went to all of those points, well, I thought it did at the time. It provided citizens with a very easy process to capture something. You've all seen this type of application before, where somebody can snap a photo of a crash or a scene, they can submit it, and they can sell it. A lot of organisations, as you would know, like CNN's iReporter, The Guardian recently in the UK have introduced this type of technology where they're asking their audience, their readers, to participate in the news-making cycle. Unfortunately, their reward is just being involved in the process. There's no monetary reward there. So this is a I guess for me was a beginning for what Newsmodo is now, and it was important because we learned very quickly working with newsrooms that this is actually not what they're looking for. Sure, it's great if you've got an audience of readers of maybe 500,000 and you can have them uploading content for free. Well, of course, why not introduce that into your news cycle? But when you're relying on outsourcing as a newsroom, as a credible news environment, you want to actually get content that you can rely on. You want to work with people that you can trust. You want to know that those who are responding to assignments are professional news gatherers. And this was very much the feedback that we got from launching Newsmodo, News Me, Newsmodo 1.0. And also, they didn't have time to sift through the mountains of pictures to find the occasional decent story that would pop up occasionally. There was just so much volume, and a lot of it was, to be honest, non-newsworthy. It might have been newsworthy to someone on a Saturday night, but it wasn't newsworthy to the big newsrooms. So what we gathered from that was that citizen journalism didn't meet the critical needs of newsrooms. And, you know, I would challenge a lot of the other products in this space to really assess that with their own business models. And I know a lot of the companies that are working on this type of technology, and you can do your own research on who they are moving away from actual genuine news content to starting to be aggregators of any commercial content that they think is actually going to fill a quota of sales. So some of them are selling photos of cups, some of them are selling photos of train stations. They're effectively filling phone books. So they're moving away from news. What we are at Newsmodo is a platform for news, a news gathering platform, and an opportunity for journalists to represent themselves in a professional space. So we went back to the drawing board, and I personally had to go. I left my full-time employment at this point and about a year and a half ago, started seeking funding to develop Newsmodo. So it's been a long process. We wanted to develop something that raised the bar from what we had originally created with NewsMe to something that allows for the transmission of actual news content. We actually provide a marketplace for journalists to not just sell images, to not just sell video clips, but to actually tell a story and sell that story. And that's really important to what we're trying to build, because it's actually not just a content aggregator. We've provided, in the way that the site has been built, a very unique platform that allows for any combination of written material, video content, as well as images. So you can put in as many types of media as you like to actually tell the story and sell the story. And we think that that's really important, because it's a unique feature of Newsmodo that doesn't exist anywhere else online. Of course, you can set your own price on Newsmodo as a contributor, so you can also build a profile, and all of this goes to supporting the journalists. We've worked very closely in developing the platform with associations that represent journalists. I've personally created alliances with the MEAA in Australia, who represents 1,700 freelance journalists, and from there we were able to expand those relationships to other organisations that also have the vested interests of journalists. So at every step of the way, we've been able to pivot to develop something that actually protects the rights of the contributor. Yes, we have a crowdsourcing model. There is an ability for newsrooms to set assignments on Newsmodo, but it's not a reverse bidding war for that opportunity. We've put in a two-step accept and approve process in that assignment setting and accepting feature, which actually means that no journalist will go and work for an assignment without the assurance that the money has been put up into the account so they know they're going to get paid. Fancy that. But you'd be surprised, on a lot of other platforms, that's not the case. So just to break down exactly what Newsmodo is, it's a marketplace for freelancers to submit their newsworthy content, to tag it and to sell it. We're not asking journalists to only sell their content and their news stories on our marketplace. We're realistic about the avenues that journalists already have to sell through agencies and local newsrooms that you might already be freelancing or working for. But what we provide is a global marketplace. I've personally been on the road. We left Australia a few weeks ago, and we've been having meetings in the UK and other countries in Europe, and talking about the platform, talking about the needs of newsrooms, and we've had a lot of positive response from big newsrooms, because they're looking, as the trend said, to outsource for content. They're looking for new and nimble ways to acquire content, so they'll go to the marketplace. They'll also set assignments. So, for instance, 6 months ago, I was talking to a newsroom in Australia who had just shed a number of jobs. It's a very sensitive time to be raising a platform like this, because I know that there are journalists who are working full-time who wonder, is this degrading the quality of work? Is this degrading the ability for us to continue to hold our jobs? And it's in that conversation 6 months ago, it was really interesting for me, because I was able to sort of glean which newsrooms were shirking the fact that they were looking to outsource, but still wanting to outsource. But the progression has been interesting. I was at ITV on last week in London, and they're looking to use the platform, but they're looking to use it aggressively. They're actually promoting the fact that they're expanding, that they're trying to find new ways to acquire content, and they'll actually promote themselves as doing so. So the shift is very much happening now, and I think that those early adopters will actually be the ones that eventually will create the relationships on Newsmodo. The great thing just on relationships between buyers and sellers, between freelancers and newsrooms, what we've actually created as part of the process is that there's complete transparency. So in setting up an account, which is free, and I would encourage you all to take a look at the registration process and create an account so that you can start browsing the site itself. But in doing that, you can actually start to show your body of work. You can actually show links. If you've got a professional website, if you're a photographer, you can link it to your photographic page. It's very much like a LinkedIn profile, and it's basic at the moment, I admit. We're building the basic site and we're still developing, so development won't stop, but there's very much an opportunity for you to showcase yourself on the site. And that makes it very easy for you to acquire opportunity through the platform. So assignments here can be distributed publicly, or a newsroom might want to keep it on the down low if they've got an exclusive, and they can actually assign you privately and directly. The cool thing is that with the mobile phone application and through the platform, you'll actually be able to communicate directly with the newsrooms, with the people that you're working for, and with the people that potentially you want to work with. So if there's an assignment, you can literally send them a message. You can have live chat back and forth and say, I'm here, do you want me to go there? We're trying to open up this technology in a way that will expand opportunity. And so that's really why we feel that Newsmodo is more than just a content platform. It's a community where professionals will be able to communicate and link up with opportunity. We're still completing the smartphone application, so please keep an eye out for that in the App Store. It's a big undertaking, building a website, and one that I've learnt a lot about in the year and a half since I quit my job to do it. We have a team in Australia of 5 full-time staff, and we have 11 developers as well who are working on the platform. I'm very proud of what we've developed, and I'm also very excited by the fact that we have extensions of the platform already in planning, and some exciting technology that I think will go to some of the issues and opportunities that have been discussed in this room earlier today, certainly around live technology, and there'll be a lot more. This will always evolve, and one of the interesting, just while I'm on that evolution, one of the interesting surprises for me in having conversations with newsrooms was raised at Northern & Shell, who they're a big publisher in the UK, and I met with them on Friday, on the day that we launched, so 5 or 6 days ago, and they surprisingly asked me, can we sell content on this platform? And that hadn't been something that I had thought a lot about, but it's now becoming quite clear that newsrooms are actually, he actually said that they were expecting that their margins would drop by 10% every year, so without spending less, they needed to find ways to actually create extra revenue. So there will be organizations looking to sell content as well on the platform. So anyway, the smartphone application is soon coming. Please keep an eye out for that. We have trialled it. As I said, we've worked very closely with organizations across Australia mainly, because that's where we're from. We're based in Melbourne. We trialled Newsmodo about 2 months ago now. We actually had an internal launch of the site, and we invited in a slither of our contributor base. So we had about 150 contributors that we identified as people that would like to, or that would actively participate in a trial. And at the other end, we invited in 15 newsrooms. So most of them were the major publications in Australia, the Fairfax publications, News Limited publications, the 3 major broadcasters, including the one I used to work for. Al Jazeera was represented, and some other publications in Asia. And we opened it up for about 5 days, and we were really impressed with the quality of content, and certainly the fact that we were able in that time to actually sell some content, to provide content to publications, which you can see there. And some of the responses, I'll read you that one at the top. I'm not sure if you can read it, but he's from the Fairfax Picture Desk, and he said that you guys really came through for us on a day when we really needed a shot from a cyclone that happened in Western Australia. They found it on our platform, and they weren't able to find it on any other agency. So that to us was really a confidence builder that what we were working on was, there was a proof of concept. So what we're offering now is, obviously it's free for contributors, and it always will be free for contributors to create a profile and start selling work. At the other end, we're offering a free 1-month trial for newsrooms. And beyond that, there are separate access points for newsrooms to access the platform and set assignments. And we've had high-level discussions with a number of organisations, and probably the majority of them have indicated if they haven't already signed up to the platform. So we're really excited by the fact that the site went live on Friday. And I'll whip it out in a minute and show you guys, but we've had some really high quality content, and that's really what is the most important thing to me as the founder, and having worked so closely obviously on the project, is that the content that's being submitted is of high quality. We've literally had, for instance, the collapse in Bangladesh. We had images from that within an hour. It was Anzac Day in Australia today. We've had a number of Anzac Day stories come from the services there. Also the Anzac services in London earlier today. And the content is starting to really fill the marketplace with robust news stories, which I'm very excited about. So just in closing with this part of the presentation, this is all of our information obviously, and I'm always available to discuss the platform throughout the rest of the festival. But we would really encourage those who are interested to obviously register, given that it's free, to really try it out for yourself. And at this stage we're really looking for feedback, given that we don't expect to think that we've perfected this site. And as I said, we don't launch the site and the development team walk away. We actually have very ambitious plans to take this site around the world. So I don't know when the next time I'll see my wife will be, but we're actually going to be doing a trip back to London, and then I'm going to New York and Paris, and we're taking this everywhere. The hard thing is showing all the publications, because it doesn't matter if you've got 100 or 1,000 high quality stories. If they're not being bought, I fully understand that doesn't help a journalist, and we want to make sure that the eyeballs from these publications are on the platform. So that's what we're doing. It will take time, obviously. We're very proud of the fact that whilst the site was in development, we engaged with communities like those associations in Australia and the US and Asia, the Asian Journalists Association. And in working with them, they were able to help us build a better platform. And through doing that, they've been able to recommend it to their members. So we've actually got a few thousand contributors who, during that time, registered their interest. They're all now starting to populate their registrations and their accounts and submit work for sale. All work that is submitted to the marketplace is, you would set the price as a contributor, and as a buyer you would also set the price that you're willing to pay for an assignment in your local currency. All currencies are live with conversion rates, so you'll see the currency you'll see the price in your currency, and the person at the other end, be they a buyer or seller, will see it in whatever they've denoted. So we're very, very proud of the fact that we've been able to make that part of the site work easily, and the feedback that we've had so far is that stories are uploaded easily, downloaded easily. And certainly for video content, it's been a lot easier for freelance videographers to submit their work, because there's no Dropboxes, there's no FTPs. It literally is uploaded whilst you're completing the assignment or the story form. And by the time that's completed, depending on the video obviously, it's typically uploaded. All video in high definition is downloaded in high definition, and photos, etc. So that is Newsmodo. It is, as I said, less than a week old. so we don't claim to be the be-all and end-all, but what we do claim to be is something that to this point we can be very proud of, and that we've worked very closely with journalists in developing and associations that represented journalists. And I suppose at this stage, yeah, I'd like to open up to some questions. Maybe I can, if the internet works all right here, we can actually swap over to this computer, or I can try this computer too. You seeing, do you want to just see if this computer works? Because I've actually got the hotel. I've actually got the hotel internet here, which is a bit better than the festival journalist one. So I'll try and sign in myself. Perfecto. So this is the site. Seen that? This is the website. I'm now logged in as a seller of news, so a journalist. What you're seeing here is some real live assignments. So we started to have the assignment page populate yesterday, which was really exciting, with some genuine news gathering opportunities. So you can see here that there's one in the Midwest of America, there's one in the UK, and we actually had this one set for Newsmodo going live. So these are the prices that I'm seeing in Australian dollars. And over here you can see the time frame that you have left to complete that assignment. To view the assignment, it's pretty simple. You can get the details of the requirements of the assignment in here. So for instance, this one requires video, image, and written copy. And in the detail here, it just says that they require some short video. Just to that, the newsrooms, from my experience with this type of content acquisition, and I've also had a lot of discussion about this with newsrooms, they don't want pre-packaged material. They much prefer unedited, raw material that they can do what they want to do with. So with this, they're actually looking just for the interview. They're looking for the raw video. They don't want, you know, whiz-bang graphics moving all over it that they then have to cut out themselves. I don't know if that's obvious, but that's something that just to note for contributing to these types of platforms and what newsrooms are looking for. I mentioned earlier about the two-step accept and approve process that I'm very proud of, because I forced that into the development. It effectively stops people working for free, unsure if they're going to get paid. So there's a lot of crowdsourcing models that I discussed out there where there might be a task and 500 people might go and do the task, and one particular person is the selected contributor, and he gets or she gets paid, and the other potentially 400 people that have worked on it go, oh, happened again. And they come back, and if it happens again, you know what they're saying, once bitten, twice shy. There's only so many times as a professional that I think you would come back to a platform where you're going to be working for nothing on the hope that you'll get paid. So if I'm a contributor and I see this assignment, I simply accept the assignment. The buyer then sees that Rakhal Ebeli has accepted the assignment. They can then drill down through my profile and say, oh yeah, he's worked as a journalist for 10 years. Here's some other work that he's sold. Here's some videos that he's done. Here's the equipment that he uses, all that type of stuff. A link to my website, whatever. If they think I'm the guy for the job, they approve me. I get it on my mobile app. You've been approved when the app goes live. But certainly through this platform, you'll get the message and an email. And if you wanted a push note, any type of notification that you ask for. And when you're approved, you know that the money for that assignment, in this case $100, has been shifted into a holding account. So upon completion, that actually goes into your account. So you're not working with any uncertainty that you're actually going to get paid, which I think is really important. So that's how assignments are set and in the site. And this is how the marketplace looks. So as I said in the beginning, the marketplace is a space where anyone can upload content and sell it to buyers around the world. And there are a lot of newsrooms in both Asia and the US now looking at this platform. What we're really proud of is that you'll be able to actually submit any combination of written, video, and images, and as many as you want. So, I don't know, this is a story that just came from Poland today, or this morning. There's 5 short videos here, and a series of images. So this is how the stories are presented in the marketplace. We're really, we've worked very hard on this. One of the iterations, one of the pivots that we made after our trial was that the newsrooms, we had a very cool, on-trend presentation of content originally, which was very magazine, Pinterest style. It looked great from a distance, but for buyers who are looking for quick, easy ways to drill down through the masses of volume of content, it wasn't working. So we went back to the drawing board and we did a very linear presentation, which I think actually helps both the buyer and the seller. Right now I'm logged in as a contributor, so I actually can't see the price on this. If I was logged in as a buyer, which I can do in a sec, I can show you that basically the only difference between how you'd see it as a buyer and a seller is that I can't click on this gentleman's name and look at his profile as a seller, and I also can't see the price and sell the price. So sell the story, buy the story. Just very quickly, the sell a story button is pivotal to the success of this platform. We've made selling a story really easy, and it will be the same on the mobile phone application. So just to give you an example, let's say FA Cup final, whatever it is, sport. This is the overview that buyers would see in the marketplace. So you can fill that with whatever you wish. Submit the date and potentially the time, add your keywords for searching. This is all pretty typical stuff, so I don't want to waste your time with going over it in too much detail, but I think it shows that the way that this site is designed is very easy to use. I won't even find UK, we'll just spin the globe and see where we land. Belgium, we were there 2 days ago. And you can obviously drill down as far down as you need to show where the story was shot. This is the uploading files area. I'll pick one file just so you can see. There you go, your picture is up. This is where, if you were to attach a written story, where you would actually put the written story. So typically you might have already written that, and you can cut and paste it in there if it's 1,500 words long, so you're not typing. There is a save as a draft button, thankfully. That was another thing we added. And an extract. So if you've got written content, we've worked really hard on how to preserve the rights of the journalist. Again, with written content, we don't want you submitting an entire story and having a rogue buyer rip it all off. So we've tried our best to develop a way for you to actually promote your story without showing your story for written content, which is quite challenging, to be honest, and very different to selling images and video. So you put an extract, which would be visible in the marketplace there. And the most important part, your price. So you might have, I don't know, that's $150 for a photo, and for your written piece, $200. Standard and extended licensing is the final option, and what we've done here, and you can go through this at your own leisure, but what we've effectively done is created the ability to sell multiple licenses to multiple buyers or to one buyer. So you can take your pick. You can either have standard only and never have it sold on an extended license, or you can try and sell it on an extended license, which will remove it from the marketplace once it's been purchased. So we've refrained from using the word exclusive on anywhere in our site. We don't want to bear the burden of a rogue contributor selling images elsewhere and trying to sell it on an exclusive license on our platform. So what I can say is, if it was to be purchased on an extended license on Newsmodo, then it is an exclusive within our platform. an extended license will obviously cost the buyer more, but it will remove the image or the story from our marketplace immediately, obviously preventing their competitors from acquiring the same story. And publish. I won't publish that, but that's how easy it is to set a story. So you've basically seen the process of being a contributor in about 10 minutes, and we wanted to keep it very simple and user-friendly. Is there any questions that I might be able to start answering at this stage, which you might have been thinking? Yep.
Two questions. First one, in the beginning you said that one demand of the newsrooms one complaint of the newsrooms were that they don't have the time to crawl to all the dozens or hundreds and thousands of offers and pitches and all that. So how did you solve that? I haven't really understand that main obstacle you had in the beginning. And the second question, if I may, in the final slide you mentioned professionals are your target group and not amateurs. And how do you distinguish the two?
So the first question, just to be clear, you're saying that the newsrooms have, I said, have difficulty pouring through the volume of user-generated content?
Well, that you said they told you they don't have the time. And,
correct.
I myself worked in a newsroom, so I can easily understand that complaint.
Yeah, and that's really why I think the trend has moved away, personally, from newsrooms relying on user-generated content from amateurs. For instance, if you've been walking down the street and you shoot a video of a bus crash, that doesn't make you a journalist. It makes you someone who was in the wrong place at the wrong time and has had the application and submitted it for sale, or submitted it instead of putting it on your Facebook page. So multiply that by 10,000 people and all submitting that type of content, maybe not the bus crash, but stuff that is to them newsworthy, isn't aggregated properly and doesn't go to what the local newsroom needs. The feedback that we received, and as you've certainly pointed out and as I experienced as a journalist in developing that first product, was that the newsrooms are so time poor, there's so much content coming in now, that they only want to take the cream of the top. And that's why we developed Newsmodo, because we want to provide a connection between the two emerging and expanding needs. So there's the needs of the newsrooms to get content and get people to stories in a cheaper way than having to send their own crew, potentially, the travel costs, the time costs, the lag in response, all of those things. And then there's this emerging market of professionals who should be getting that work over potentially someone who just happens to be walking down the street. I'm not saying that user-generated content doesn't have its merits, and certainly, as we saw, the tragic events in Boston, that there was the videos that were taken, and certainly that material will always be of high interest to newsrooms. But when it comes to covering events and when it comes to general usage, they don't want to be sifting through mountains of user-generated content, in my opinion. Yeah. Is there another question?
Is it possible to upload contents also by press offices?
Yeah.
And is it possible to upload them for free, to distribute them for free?
Yeah, so do you mean, for instance, if you have an event, or could you give me an example of? I can hear you.
For example, I work in a press office of a research center, and I write news about new discoveries and so on. And I distribute my press releases, my stories. And is it possible for me also to upload on your website?
What we are working towards is we have a laser-like focus on this being a news site, not a PR site. So we're very, very, I suppose, guarded about that strategy. What we are, I'm not saying that potentially the stories that would be submitted by a press office wouldn't be of interest to buyers around the world, but we're not actually, you would probably need to think of it, flip it around and think of it the other way, that you would set that as an assignment for our journalists to actually cover. So that's really the way that we're looking at it. We're not a pitch agency, so we're actually, for instance, if you had your event, your research event, and you had your own journalists cover that event, then you could sell the content to other newsrooms. But it's not a pitch agency to say, we've got an event coming up, and can we have a journalist come and cover it? If you wanted to do that, then sure, you could set it as an assignment and say, we've got this event coming, we would love to have it covered, and we will pay the journalist to come and cover it. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Yes.
No worries. Thank you for asking in English too. Thank you. Is there any other questions? Well, it must have been very comprehensive. Does anyone want to see how it would look? I'll just quickly show you as a buyer. I think it's important for journalists to see how a buyer would see their content. As I said, exactly the same. However, once you drill down into some of this stuff, and I was really impressed with some of the stories that we're getting. For instance, this death toll from Bangladesh, as I said yesterday, this came up really quickly. And you can see here that this is not expensive for buyers. So by shielding the pricing on each of the stories, it really does leave the onus on the contributor as to how high or low they want to sell their story. They can change that if it's not selling. If they tried to sell that for $2,900, they can whip a couple of zeros off the end and hopefully sell that quickly. And for instance, to actually acquire that, I throw that in my cart. There's my cart. And the rest is very formulaic. So there's a few stories that I've purchased, and then I'm not going to buy that. But it's all linked to PayPal. It's all linked to credit cards. We've established some accounts for bigger newsrooms. For instance, I met with the BBC and ITV in London, and they've asked us to look within commercial confidence. We're very confident that they will set up a type of account that will provide them with an invoice base, because they'll be buying in higher volume. But for most of the smaller middle-tier agencies, this will be a quick and convenient way for them to acquire content using a credit card account. They can have multiple access points, so through one account they can have 5 potential buyers looking at it. Setting assignments for a newsroom is just like the process of uploading a story. The cool thing is they can set it publicly, as I said, or privately. So if they want to maximize uptake and have it seen by more contributors, they can set that publicly, or they can set it privately, which means if they've identified somebody who could do the story already, perhaps the story is an exclusive, they don't want their competitors to know that they're posting and working on, they can actually set that assignment privately to someone. And then very much like the posting of a story, I won't go through it, but it's a 4-step process. The extra part here, they can actually provide a PDF or, for instance, a letter or a ticket, something that the contributor can download it and print out if they need a hard copy to get into an event or something like that. So we've really tried to make this a thoughtful, and think of all those things that do happen along the way to actually facilitate the assignment in a wise way to make life easier for both the journalist and the buyer. And as I said, at the end of the day, you can communicate with them. So if you can't get in, you should be able to send them a quick texty, and they'll sort it out for you. So that, in a nutshell, is Newsmodo after 6 days. as you can see, we have a really broad variety of content. I would really encourage you guys to check it out, set up a profile. There is still that, I think, Perugia, covering the Perugia Journalism Festival for $100. And that's really just an example, I guess, of being able to shoot a quick interview and being able to upload it for that guaranteed payment. So without further ado, unless there's any additional questions, I might wrap things up. Thank you all for your time. I really do appreciate you guys coming along. I know there's a lot going on here in Perugia. And just again, that's my information. And I'll be around. So if you want to have a chat, come and say hi. Thanks very much. Thank you.